You ready?
Hold on. Crazy pumpkin lady. Everybody. I'll participate.
Okay.
You got control of this.
That's all you meant. I got nothing.
I don't know pumpkins.
I believe you. The time is now 7:18. I would like to call the Beloit City Council meeting to order at this time. Roll call, please.
All counselors are present.
Item 2, Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and join me with the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3, Special Order of Day and Announcements. 3A, please.
We have the introduction of newly hired and promoted employees.
City Manager Luther.
Yes, if I can have Captain Stigler come forward. He has two newly promoted employees that he'll be introducing.
Good evening. It is with great pleasure on behalf of Chief Zabalski, I'd like to introduce two recent promotees. Sergeant John Amison, who's been a longtime member of the police department, and Lieutenant Dave Elrod, another longtime member of the police department.
Thank you very much.
And also, our Public Works Director, Laura Pagatti Williamson, is here, and we have our new interim city engineer, Scott Prindeville.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to be introducing you to our interim city engineer, which is Scott Prindeville. With the recent retirement of Mike Flesh, we were able to have Scott join our team as we go through our full recruitment process. So we're very excited to have Scott here. Welcome to Beloit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. 3B, please.
Item 3B is a proclamation supporting the naming of LCS 29 USS Beloit.
City Manager Luther.
Thank you. I must say that in my entire career, this is perhaps one of the most significant items that I have the privilege to officially announce through this proclamation. Whereas the United States Navy has officially named its newest Freedom-class littoral combat ship, previously known as LCS 29, as USS Beloit. And whereas the USS Beloit is being manufactured by Lockheed Martin at its shipyard in Marinette, Wisconsin. And whereas in 2015, Fairbanks Morse, an Enpro Industries company, was selected as Lockheed Martin's Supplier of the Year for bringing the critical mission power to their platforms. And whereas Fairbanks Morse has powered the U.S. Navy with high-quality engines for over 70 years from its headquarters in Beloit, Wisconsin. Fairbanks Morse manufactures approximately 80% of the Navy's propulsion diesel engines today, including the engines in the Freedom-class LCS, and contributes significantly to U.S. national security. And whereas the Beloit community has a long and proud history of supporting the U.S. Navy, which continues to this day with Fairbanks Morse manufacturing a large percentage of the Navy's large medium-speed diesel engines. And whereas Fairbanks Morse sold its first engine, a Model 38 opposed piston OP engine, to the Navy in 1938. And whereas in preparation for World War II, the Navy invested $5.5 million, which equates to approximately $100 million today, in a new Fairbanks Morse manufacturing site in Beloit that could handle the manufacturing needs for diesel engines. And whereas during the war, Fairbanks Morse put its locomotive business on hold in order to manufacture 1,650 engines at a rate of one delivered per day. And whereas Fairbanks Morse's contributions to the war effort led to the Army and Navy presenting the company with 2 E for Excellence awards. And whereas the city of Beloit greatly supported the efforts of Fairbanks Morse during and after armed conflicts with building new housing developments, refurbishing old housing, establishing new bus lines to bring workers from adjacent communities, and encouraging women to join the workforce. And whereas other Beloit companies supported the U.S. Navy during the war, including the Beloit Iron Works and C.H. Beasley, among others. And whereas the Beloit community played a significant role in World War II with the founding of the Council of Defense, which organized civilian war efforts such as fundraising, scrap metal drives, civilian defense initiatives in case of blackouts and air raids, training of blackout workers, and volunteers to carry on Civil War service. And whereas Beloit men and women have demonstrated a commitment to the defense of our nation, serving in various roles and branches of the military even today, including retired Major General Marcia Anderson, the U.S. Army's first female African-American Major General, who grew up in Beloit and broke through barriers to serve her country. And whereas Beloit pays tribute each Memorial Day to the individuals who have paid the ultimate sacrifice while serving our country, including 5 men who were killed in the attack on Pearl Harbor. And whereas several Beloit military veterans have served this country with great honor and bravery, including Medal of Honor recipients who served in the Philippine insurrection, Distinguished Service Cross recipient, and World War I veteran Ray C. Dickup, Wilfred Lloyd, and James C. Hicks, the Navy Cross for World War II veterans John W. Randall and Theodore Erickson, and Distinguished Service Cross recipient and Korean War veteran William H. Hodgkiss. And whereas, in more recent years, other Beloit companies have continued to support the U.S. Department of Defense. And whereas, without these superior engines being manufactured by Fairbanks Morse in Beloit, it would be extremely difficult for the U.S. Navy to build toward a 355-ship fleet capable of supporting the national security strategy of the United States of America. And whereas naming a U.S. Navy ship after Beloit, Wisconsin, recognizes the significant contributions by distinguished Beloit military veterans and other hardworking people, particularly at Fairbanks Morse and other supportive businesses. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Beloit shows its sincere appreciation to the U.S. Navy, U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin for the recognition of the great people of this proud Wisconsin city and the long history of the high-quality propulsion engines built here by Fairbanks Morse. I would like to invite Rhett Merriman, he's the manager of Marine Power Systems for Fairbanks Morse, to the podium. I would also like to acknowledge Flora Chontos, who is from Senator Baldwin's office. She is here with us this evening. I would also like to acknowledge city staff who very quickly worked in partnership with the Senator's office at their request. Andrew Yonke, Sarah Millard, Pam Lathrop, and Stephanie Bailey in particular, who very rapidly provided much-needed information, coordinated with the Beloit Historical Society and others to provide the factual information before you this evening. We are absolutely thrilled to have this honor and want to thank you both. So please, you can come forward. I would like to present you with this resolution. Proclamation.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Well, much like you, Lori, I've been with Fairbanks Morse now for 40 years, and this is by far, heads and tails, the top of cool things that has ever happened in my career. It is, I've called Beloit home since I was 7 years old, going back a few years, and to have a U.S. warship carry the name USS Beloit is really an exciting and honorable thing to accomplish. So, it really is reflective of the community here, the city of Beloit, and the people of Fairbanks Morse, not only current day but past. and that have supported this nation's defense for 80 years now. And I guess in closing, I'd like to say that this really, truly could not have happened without the unwavering support of Tammy Baldwin. Senator Baldwin has been supportive of this from the initial onset and has pushed this project of mine through not just one Secretary of the Navy, Ray Mabus, the prior, but also with the current Secretary Richard Spencer. So my sincerest appreciation to Senator Baldwin and her staff for making really this a dream come true for me. So, and thank you all for having us here tonight.
And I would just like to also add, huge deal for Beloit. Oftentimes we sit down and say what a wonderful city we have. So now the world already knows, but now it's really going to be known. But hats off to everyone involved. And who would have thought that as a youngster in Beloit, trying to get down Park Avenue at 3:30 in the afternoon when Fairbanks and were letting off for work and standing there waiting on my grandfather to come out, that holding up traffic for half hours at a time, that something like this would happen. So I'm sure Fairbanks is very proud, but not only that, but the entire city is. So hats off to you and everyone who played a part in this, and to echo the city manager's comments, that when we were notified, it was kind of like, okay, no one says anything, they're working on communication, and within minutes, they had something out. So congratulations to everyone. I'm sure it was a big effort, but we greatly appreciate that, and we want Tammy to definitely know that we appreciate everything that she's done. So students here, when you go back to school, you can let them know that soon you're going to have a ship named after Beloit, and it's something huge. So this is something that the city does not take lightly at all. We're very pleased for it, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
In closing on that subject, there will be a number of events and celebratory activities over the course of the next couple of years. The actual launch is anticipated in December of 2021, but there will be a week-long set of commissioning events that we will be hosting here in Beloit with individuals from the Navy. So as those things are detailed, we will certainly let the public know how they can share in our celebration.
Thank you. 3C, please.
Is a presidential proclamation on National Substance Abuse Prevention Month.
Vice President Duncan.
If I could add Debbie Fisher to come forward and her team, that'd be great. It's not too long, so I want you to be here, Deb. Good to see you. Come on. Okay. You over? Okay. On behalf of the City of Beloit, we'd like to give you a proclamation, and it reads, whereas National Substance Abuse Prevention Month recognizes the importance of preventing and ending substance abuse, and whereas educating our residents on the risks and dangers associated with substance abuse will help prevent addictions from occurring, and whereas our nation lost 72,000 individuals to an overdose in 2017, the United States, with 33 of those being opioid-related deaths in Rock County, and whereas we must encourage relatives and friends of people with substance use disorders to implement preventative measures, recognize the signs of a problem, and guide those in need to appropriate treatment and recovery support services. And whereas many groups and individuals in the Beloit community are dedicated to the prevention of substance abuse, including the Rock County Youth to Youth mission of reducing substance abuse among our youth and promoting healthy lifestyles through education and advocacy. And whereas preventing substance abuse will help improve academic performance, healthier lifestyles, and safer communities. Now, therefore, the President and the Beloit City Council proclaim October 2018 as National Substance Abuse Prevention Month in the City of Beloit, and encourages the support and participation of all residents to observe this month with appropriate ceremonies, activities, and programs. Presented this 15th day of October 2018. Congratulations. And it's nice to see that you have the youth with you today, too. So we won't put you on the spot today. But Deb, if you could just give us a few words, please.
Sure. I think that a lot of people think of our coalition as a tobacco prevention coalition, and they don't realize that these are our leaders. We have over 250 every year that go throughout the county and start prevention in second grade all the way through high school. And some of our adult alumni come back and talk to the high school kids. But opiate prevention is really a primary part of us. Anybody that's been touched by heroin, which many of us have, they don't wake up to be a heroin user. They've used something before that. And we really work hard on the prevention of tobacco all the way up to alcohol, marijuana, and prescription drugs. The good news is we've done a social norm campaign this year, and it's continuing. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but most Beloit teens choose to be drug-free. We are making an impact, and our youth are making the right decisions, and we're very proud of that. And we're going to continue doing this. I know that there will never be a day that it's all gone, but we are making an impact, and most of our kids are making the right decisions, and that's where we're going. So, thank you.
3D, please.
Is a proclamation declaring October 15th, 2018 as White Cane Safety Day.
Vice President Duncan.
Okay. Whereas blindness and severe visual impairment affect approximately 200,000 Wisconsin residents, and whereas the majority of these persons use a travel aid such as a white cane or dog guide, and whereas these travel aids are universally recognized as symbols representing the loss of vision, and whereas people who operate motor vehicles must be alert for visually impaired pedestrians, stopping the vehicle no closer than 10 feet to a pedestrian who is carrying a cane or walking stick, which is white in color or white trimmed with red, and which is held in an extended or raised position, or who is using a service animal. Motor vehicle operators shall take such precautions as they may be necessary to avoid accident or injury to the pedestrian. Now, therefore, the City Council President and the City Council does hereby proclaim Monday, October 15th, 2018 as White Cane Safety Day in Beloit, and urge operators of motor vehicles to be acutely aware of visually impaired pedestrians and obey the Wisconsin laws that protect them. Presented this 15th day of October, 2018.
Item 4, public hearings. 4A, please.
We have a consideration of ordinance number 3628, updating the City of Beloit Comprehensive Plan and amending Section 12.015 sub 3 of the Code of General Ordinances.
Ms. Christensen, please.
So the city's comprehensive plan was last updated in 2008, and the state law requires us to update this plan every 10 years. We're not required to do a full comprehensive rewrite, but to look at the sections that have changed and that are in need of update. So what we did this time was we updated the introduction, the issues and opportunities, the land use, including the future land use map, and the housing and neighborhood development chapter. So we did this project in-house, so we didn't have a budget for a consultant, so Drew Pennington, our Director of Planning and Building Services, led this effort, and you guys appointed a steering committee. He held meetings, had open houses, and did a public input survey as well, to try to solicit input and kind of move through this process. As part of the plan development, the steering committee endorsed the new Department of Administration projections, which project modest population growth of 8.6% to 40,000 residents by the year 2030. And based on those population projections and past development patterns, they predicted land use demand totaling 642 acres for residential, non-residential, and infrastructure uses by the year 2030. And then they recommended new land use policies and new housing policies, which are outlined in your staff report. They also recommended several changes to the future land use map based on the revised goals and objectives and in consideration of the community input. And then in your packet in the staff report is a table which does identify those properties which are being proposed for changes on the future land use map. There's the existing future land use and then the proposed future land use. A lot of these properties were vacant land which have been developed, and we're showing some changes from commercial to industrial. There's a few school sites on here and just a variety of sites that have been in transition over the last 10 years. And they're being proposed to change from from one future land use to another. This is on your agenda tonight for a public hearing and a first reading, and then it'll come back to you for action at your next meeting.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to open the public hearing on item 4A. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4A this evening, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Andrew Saris. I currently purchased the old...
Okay, and I just need your address too, I'm sorry.
Of the location or home?
Home.
Home, 4201 Greenwood, Skokie, Illinois.
Okay,
Chicago.
thank you.
I purchased the current property located on Prairie in Virginia, which is known as the military base.
Okay.
And I'd like to open up the recommendation for review from what it currently is listed from a single family to I believe a multifamily. I'd like to open up the review to a mixed residential.
Okay.
And I've spoken with Drew, and I just wanted to propose it. So, you can open up the floor to that during the next meeting. I need some time to get some drawings, some ideas, and some sketches so they can review it to see how that would go in with the current plan that they have.
Okay, and then what I'll do is, Julie, if you could get with this gentleman, exchange information, and then you guys can start to have a conversation before it comes back to us, kind of keep us and the city manager in the loop of what's going on, and that way at the next meeting, we should have something worked out. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Second call for item 4A. Anyone wishing to speak under item 4A this evening, please step forward, state your name and address for the record. Third and final call. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4A this evening? Seeing none, I would close the public hearing on item 4A and entertain a motion to lay this over. Is there such a motion?
I so move.
Motion by Forbeck. Is there a second? Second by Duncan. Any questions or comments by council? Seeing none, all in favor of laying this over to our next meeting, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll lay this over to our next meeting. 4B, please.
Consideration of Resolution 2018-180, authorizing a conditional use permit to allow a drive-in use in a CBD2 Central Business District fringe for the properties located at 802, 810, and 816 4th Street.
Ms. Christensen.
The applicant intends to remodel the existing Pizza Hut restaurant located at 802 4th Street and has proposed numerous site improvements, including a pickup window, which was shown on the attached site plan. He's also proposing to eliminate the front parking area between the building and 4th Street, the construction of a new off-street parking lot in the adjacent parcels, elimination of the front yard parking arrangement, and closure of the driveway on Roosevelt will greatly improve the safety of this intersection. And they're also proposing the replacement of the existing pole sign with a new ground sign. So this will do a lot on 4th Street to make it a lot more attractive. The pickup window is intended to be just that, a pickup window, so they will not have a menu board. You'll essentially, this will be your if you were doing carry out, you were coming to the store, it will allow you to pick it up at the window. So it does include 3 stacking spaces, and a bypass lane is required by the zoning ordinance. The code also requires the stacking spaces be designed to allow vehicles to exit the stacked lane without backing up or waiting. So we are recommending, there's a reminder of a zoning ordinance condition that prohibits the employees or delivery drivers from parking in that bypass lane. And Plan Commission did review this item on October 3rd, 2018, and voted unanimously to recommend approval of the CUP as listed in your resolution before you tonight, which does include 2 conditions, which is that the conditional use permit authorizes a restaurant pickup window, as shown on the attachment submitted with the application. If use of the window ceases for a period of 12 continuous months, then shall be considered abandoned and the CUP shall expire. Prior to using the drive-in window, the property owner shall record an ingress-egress easement over the subject properties to ensure that the proposed traffic flow will not be cut off or impaired if any of the affected properties are sold. Because these properties are all currently owned by the same owner, it's not a problem. But if one would be sold, and they would need that easement to protect them. And then we are also advising the applicant of some additional ordinance requirements. which is the condition about not parking in the bypass lane. And then prior to any site work construction, the applicant shall submit detailed site plans and receive staff approval in the form of a certificate of zoning compliance. And we are actually very excited that Pizza Hut's making these improvements. I think it'll do a lot at that site on 4th Street.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I would like to open the public hearing on item 4B. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4B this evening, please step forward to state your name and address for the record, please.
Adam Griffin, 5440 South Shady Lane in Janesville. I'm the civil engineer for this remodel, and I'm going to do my best to answer any questions you might have with regard to these plans. I do have extra copies of the plans if anybody would like to see them.
Okay. And we'll see once we get to the councils if they have any questions then also. Just stand by. At this time, I would like to call for the second reading not second reading, but anyone wishing to speak on item 4B this evening, please step forward, state your name and address for the record. Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4B this evening. Seeing none, I would close the public hearing on that item, entertain a motion from council. Is there a motion by Press Shows, second by Blakely. Any questions, comments? Seeing none.
I just like to say, I'd like to reiterate what Julie said, that this is wonderful to see. Those of us who work downtown go by there all the time and have used the place for many, many years. Really happy to see that that parking, awkward parking in front being dealt with, and making good use of that parking lot, where I have a friend that has an office over there, and it's all a huge, nice improvement, and it looks really good on paper. So thank you for doing that.
Councilor Blakely.
Thanks to Mr. Griffin for being here, but I don't have any questions. This looks very thorough to me.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, there is a motion and a second on the floor. All those in approval of item 4B this evening, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. Item 4C, please.
It's a public hearing on the 2019 Community Development Block Grant, proposed budget, and 2019 annual action plan.
Ms. Christensen.
The HUD requires each CDBG formula grantee to submit a consolidated plan every 5 years, an annual action plan each year. Both plans include specific objectives for housing, homelessness, public housing, community development. The annual action plan, which is in your packet and is this huge thick document, includes how the city intends to allocate its CDBG funds over the next year. So the process is generally the CDA recommends and council approves funding priorities. Applications are made available to agencies interested in applying for the funds. Each applicant presents their application to the CDA, and the CDA goes through in great thoroughness all the applications and comes up with a budget. And then at this point, a public hearing is held by the city council, and then ultimately it will be on your agenda for adoption at your next meeting. Included in your packet along with the plan was a summary of all the applications, the amount they received, the risk analysis, the amount they received last year, and what the request was this year. What do I need to do here, Lori?
Oh.
Go? Okay. So on the budget side, what we are estimating this year, because we do not have a federal budget at this point, we are estimating this year we received about $623,000 in grant funds. That was high compared to past years, so we're not willing to kind of go that high again. So we are estimating conservatively at $575,000. If we do get the same amount we got this year, we'll just come back through this public process again. We would rather give than take away from agencies, give too much. And then there's an estimate of some program income that is estimated to come in 19, $29,276 from old economic development loans, $135,000 in housing rehab loan payments, and then about $3,000 from NeighborWorks. And then on that slide shows your public service cap, so you can't give out more than $116,049 to public service agencies. You can't spend more than $148,455 on planning and administrative activities, and then only 20% can come from the actual grant. Some has to come from program income, so that's capped at $115,000. This is the proposed public service budget that CDA recommended. I don't know if you want me to walk through it or if you just can show, I mean, this was what was in your packet. The CDA took quite a bit of time to go through it. And I can say that I feel like the focus was on programs that would help the homeless population and programs that are in our community serving the people in this community. So the two agencies that are not recommended for any dollars are Legal Action, which we are still working on a way to bring them to the community. They requested $100,000, and for the small amount we could give them, we could only give them about 10. It wasn't worth it to them to establish it, but we are trying to create a situation with some of the non-for-profits to use their services. And then YWCA Rock County Empowerment Center, the board felt like, and staff concurred, that it was similar services to other agencies in Beloit that are already in Beloit. And then this slide covers the NARSA activities. So we did the NARSA plan about a year ago, and as part of that plan, we're allowed to fund public service activities outside of the cap. So this allows us to fund agencies that are community-based development organizations who are operating in those neighborhoods, who are meeting goals from that plan. So the Community Action Resources Navigator, the Family Services Systems Navigator, the Merrill Community Center, and the Youth to Youth for Change, their neighborhood leadership project. So it allows us to fund a little bit more in public services than we typically would be allowed to do so. And then there's $20,000 for NeighborWorks for direct home buyer assistance. We are supportive of home ownership, but they have money that they're bringing into 19 from the 18 funds. So they will still have enough to make a difference. And we also have given them home funds and for down payment as well. And then $159,000 for the code enforcement program. And then $143,455 for program administration, $5,000 for fair housing. That's so our EOC can and our investigator can investigate fair housing complaints. And then $168,722 for the housing rehab revolving loan fund, for a grand total of $742,276. So this is on your agenda for a public hearing tonight. You will not take action tonight. This will be on your agenda for action next time with the other budgets that'll be before you. So it's just public hearing. If anyone comes up to speak, just listen and.
Just listen. At this time, I would like to open the public hearing on item 4C. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4C this evening, please step forward, state your name and address for the record. Second call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4C this evening. Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4C this evening. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on item 4C and move to item 4D, please.
4D is the 2019 Home Investment Partnership Proposed Budget Public Hearing.
Ms. Christensen.
So the city is a member of the Rock County Home Consortium, and as a result, we receive an annual allocation of Home Investment Partnership Program funds. It was amended, the agreement with Rock County and Janesville was amended in 2016. So starting in 17, we received 28% of the project funds, and we also receive administrative funds for administrative activities, which is the staff time to operate the program. I need the PowerPoint. How do I? Thank you. Okay, so for 2019, we're estimating that we will receive $195,000 in new home grant funds and $35,000 in home administrative dollars. And in addition, we anticipate using $120,000 in 2018 program income and $150,000 in prior year funds in 2019. The HUD allows us to earn money 1 year and then use it the next year. So at this point, that's about how much income we're bringing in. The CDA recommended using up to $120,000 in the total funds allocated for 2019 for owner-occupied rehab loans, with the remaining balance to be used for acquisition rehab and new construction projects in the NARSA areas, similar to the project that is on your agenda tonight. And this is just the night for your public hearing for the home budget as well, and this will be on your agenda, first meeting in November for action.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to open the public hearing on item 4D. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4D this evening, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. Second call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4D this evening. Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak on the item 4D this evening. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on item 4D and move to 4E, please.
The public hearing for the 2019 operating, library, and capital improvements proposed budgets.
Mr. Miller.
Good evening. So a couple weeks ago, I presented the 2019 proposed operating and capital budget, and then we posted the proposed budget on the City of Beloit's website for the public to review. And then last Monday, we held a workshop over at the Beloit Public Library as an opportunity for you all to answer or get answered any of the questions that you might have regarding the budget. So with that said, I just have a few slides that I'll go through in summary just to reintroduce the 2019 budget. Okay, so again, the city proposed budget for all funds is about $9.3 million. There was 3 slight differences from the original proposed budget to the budget that we see in this slide here, and that was regarding the 2 programs that you just had the public hearings for with the home and the CDBG budget. So there was a slight modification to the special revenue funds. And then there was one minor capital improvement project that we got word of that we were going to be able to get funding from WISDOT to replace the roof of our transit facility, and that just came late last week. So that will be in the budget that we present on the 5th for final adoption. So that is one of the small variances between the time when we proposed 2 weeks ago and what it is right now. The general fund budget shows an increase of about $920,000, which is roughly 3% increase over the 2018 budget. And then, of course, our enterprise funds increased by about $940,000 up to about $19 million. Here's a summary slide, very high level, all funds combined. The outlier here, of course, is the capital improvement budget, which is showing a decrease of about $10.3 million. That is primarily due again to the fact that we did have some capital projects that were budgeted in the water and wastewater utility that we did a revenue bond for in 2018. So we don't need to have those projects on the capital project list again. Therefore, it's a reduction of about $10.3 million. So as always, we have some staffing changes each year. This year we have in the police department, we are adding an inspector position that we plan on funding in the 4th quarter of 2019. That inspector position is in essence the deputy chief position. We are also replacing 1 full-time CSO with 2 part-time CSOs, as well as 1 full-time evidence custodian with 2 part-time evidence custodians. One of the other changes here is we had a vacant part-time administrative assistant that is going to be filled or is filled currently as a full-time position. We're also going through some structural changes in the Department of Public Works. Some of the changes there is the addition of the administrative assistant position, the administrative supervisor position, and the funding source for that is going to be 1 vacant equipment operator position as well as a part-time administrative assistant position. We also created a new forestry org that is going to be listed under the Parks and Rec Division. We removed that from our streets department as a way that we can then track those forestry costs a little bit better when we isolate those out. This org will be staffed with 4 full-time equipment operators and 1 full-time supervisor. The supervisor came from the admin budget under operations, and the full-time equipment operators came from our streets division. So you'll see subsequent reductions in those departments where you see the increase in the forestry org. Also, we had a vacant parks and cemetery supervisor position that was replaced with our supervisor of citywide facilities. kind of a newer org where we have particular individual overseeing all of our facilities throughout the city, so they would have one centralized location for them to be able to manage the maintenance of those facilities. So some of the other highlights are in the 2019 budget, we have proposed a 2% cost of living adjustment across the board for all employees, as well as increasing the premium share contribution of 5% up to 7.5%. This was a direct correlation to the renegotiation of the union contracts, and we wanted to make that an equitable solution for all employees. So that's what that's related to. The shared revenue and expenditure restraint has remained flat for decades now. We're just thankful that it has not been reduced at this point. One thing that we are seeing is the potential for some increase in highway aids of about $65,000. That's under the assumption that the reimbursement rate does not change. It hasn't been announced yet for 2019, so we go based on the current levels of reimbursement, and so we're anticipating about a $65,000 increase. The state budget has begun to phase out the personal property tax, and so in order to do that, you have to reduce the assessed values, and so they have made a promise to local municipal governments that they will make them whole for the amount of value that they have reduced or made exempt. And therefore, that created $181,000 of a personal property aid payment that we'll see for the first time next year. The net new construction increased 0.25 to 1.1. And the closure of TID 5 added an additional 1.31% of capacity to the levy. We've made a commitment that we will take full account of that increase and not leave any of that on the table. So we have fulfilled that promise and done that. And the assessed and equalized values have also increased by 1% and 2.7% respectively. Those values would have been higher had it not been for the exemption of the personal property of about $20 million. So there's a slide later on in the presentation that you'll see that. The local portion of the property tax levy increased by about $600,000. This is still restricted by the state imposed levy limits. $400,000 of that $600,000 is for debt service. Debt service is exempt from the levy limits. So we have the ability to increase the levy as needed to pay the bonds that we use to borrow for capital projects. Interest rates have finally begun to show some increases. We actually had another increase by the Fed last month by another 0.25%, which has allowed us to budget approximately $200,000 of additional dollars in interest income for our general fund next year. The wastewater utility is proposing a 3% increase to maintain critical infrastructure, and we'll utilize the PSC simplified rate study in the water utility to increase our rates by 3%, and based on timing, we anticipate that 3% will become effective in the second half of 2019. Our original plan when we went out for full rate study in 2017 was to go back for another rate study, full rate study, in the end of 2019, hopefully to be effective in early 2020. And then, of course, as we always do, we take a look at all of our fee schedules and make sure that they are semi in line with projected costs to run those programs. This is our municipal tax levy slide. It shows, again, the $600,000 total increase in the property tax levy. $400,000 of that is, of course, debt service. The other $200,000 is the capacity that we were able to get from our net new construction and our closure of TID number 5. And one of the things that we want to point out here, of course, is the tax rate showing a reduction of about 18 cents per thousand of assessed value, which is about a 1.5% decrease in our local tax rate. And again, that has a direct correlation to our closure of TID number 5, which allowed us to gain some of that capacity as well as provide tax relief to the taxpayer. The $15 million of assessed value increase there would be about $35 million had it not been for the exemption of personal property tax. So we really would have seen a more significant increase in our assessed and equalized values. So here's just a little chart that shows where the tax rate has been over the last 5 years. You can see that we have that nice reduction there, and as we continue to move forward and close other existing TIF districts, like we have number 6 on tap next, we should hopefully see an additional decrease in our local tax levy, or local tax rate, I'm sorry. And then here's our equalized and assessed values. You can see that there's a positive trend there, albeit a little bit smaller than what we would like. But again, you could add about 20 million to those numbers and you'd see a more significant increase in your total values. So the next step is the last step, and that is to bring forth the budget again November 5th for your consideration for adoption. So at this point, that concludes my presentation. I'd take any questions prior to opening up for the public hearing.
Okay, at this time, I would like to open up the public hearing on item 4E. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4E this evening, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. Second call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4E this evening. Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4E this evening. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on item 4E and move to item 5, which is public comments. We've reached a point on the agenda where citizens may come forward to address anything that's not on the agenda. We do ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. I will not cut you off, but I'll give your friend a reminder that you're approaching the 3 minute. However, any personal attacks on council, staff member, and anyone else, I would ask you to sit down immediately. We do have 2 people that filled out a form. It is not required that you fill out a form. But I will call those individuals first, and after that, and anyone else wishing to speak under this portion of the agenda may come forward at this time. The first person is Mark Miller, I believe. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Mark Miller, 2675 Iva Court, number 4. I'm the president of the Iva Court Condo Association. We have several concerns about the proposed convenient liquor store on Prairie Avenue coming in. The extra traffic that the store would generate that would use Post Road instead of Prairie Avenue, they would cut off the stoplights at the corner of Prairie and Elmwood. That would be one of our big concerns. The lack of barriers that would enable people to exit to the north. There's a vacant lot, and that would be able to go to Post Road. We're concerned about the possibility of excess noise from cars using the store. For example, there's quite a bit of noise generated by people going through the McDonald's. Which is open on 24 hours, and that's across the street. Noise does keep quite a bit of the people to wake up. A lot of times when someone's sitting in a drive-through, for some reason they like to turn up their radio of their car so everybody can hear it from Iva Court to the Rock River. It travels quite bad. Finally, we would like to see a privacy fence along the west property line to block the lights that would shine into the people's homes. That the Iva Court has been there for quite some time now, and as the cars drive through on the backside. Thank you.
Thank you. The second person that filled out a form is Alice Blue. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Okay, I'm Alice Blue. I own Badger Spirits. That's located at 2621 Prairie Avenue. And as you know, I hold a Class A liquor license for off-premise consumption. I'm also the owner of that property, beyond being the liquor store. At Badger Spirits, I have 3 full-time people and 4 part-time people. I pay property taxes as well as personal property taxes to the city of Beloit. I have a vested interest in the well-being of our community as a local resident as well as a property owner. And I do believe that the city of Beloit has far too many outlets for the purchase of off-premise liquor consumption. In 2012, Wisconsin's Alcohol License Overview did a study that stated the size, number, and location of both on-premise and off-premise locations have a significant impact on a community. It stated that research shows a relationship between high concentration of licensed outlets selling alcohol and the levels of alcohol-related crime and disorder. When I opened my store in 2006, which is on the corner of Prairie and Elmwood, there were 6 other locations selling alcohol for off-premise consumption within a mile of my location. Today, there are 15 locations within that same mile radius. That's more than doubled. Today, the city of Beloit has 51 limited and 30 full off-premise licenses, which breaks down to 1 license for every 454 residents based on our current population, which has remained fairly constant for the last 40 years at about 37,000 residents. In Wisconsin, we have communities that have linked licenses to population density. For example, Janesville has issued 19 off-premise licenses based on their population of 64,000 residents. That means there's 1 license for every 3,500 residents. The city of Racine has a similar program limiting their off-premise licenses. California looks at their licenses on a statewide basis and limits their off-premise licenses to 1 license per 2,500 residents. Their state legislator, as you can tell, I'm nervous, determined that public welfare required this limiting of licenses, and they determined that an applicant can be denied an available license if that license would tend to create a law enforcement problem or if it would result in or add to an undue concentration of licenses in a specific geographic area. In the 2016, the city of Beloit has 36,757 residents. Based on our population, if we use California's formula, that would give 15 off-premise licenses. Janesville's formula would result in 11 licenses. Again, we have 81 licenses in the city of Beloit, 1 for every 454 residents, and about a third of that would be children. Today I can go into drugstores, gas stations, convenience stores, grocery stores, bait shops, dollar stores, sandwich shops, all within the city of Beloit, and buy alcohol. I do believe that adding to our already large number of off-premise locations doesn't add to the overall well-being of our community. Our Wisconsin law says that a citizen has no right to a liquor license even if they are qualified to have one. Furthermore, it states that a municipality can impose more restrictive limits on the number or type of alcohol outlets than the state imposes. I hope that this information will open a discussion about the number of off-premise licenses being issued by the city of Beloit and bring about the realization that there are really too many based on our population density.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak under public comments this evening? Please step forward and state your name and address for the record. Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak under public comments this evening? Seeing none, I will close public comments at this time. Move to item 6, consent agenda, please.
All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered at this point on the agenda.
Is there any council like anything removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, the consent agenda will consist of items 6A through 6D. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Jacobson, second by Duncan. Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. Item 7 is licenses. 7A, please.
7A is a consideration of Resolution 2018-179 for the approval denial of 2017-29 applicants for an alcohol beverage operator's license. This is for the period September 25th through October 8th. You have before you 8 recommendations for approval, 1 recommendation for denial. The time frame to appeal the denial has passed.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Blakely. Is there a second? Second by Anderson. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of approval of 7A say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7A. 7B, please.
7B is consideration of a resolution 2018-178 for a new Class A beer and Class A intoxicating liquor license for Nicholas F. Lerma, doing business as Nico's Convenience and Liquor Store located at 2648 Prairie Avenue. Would you like a full report of the application?
Sure.
So, Mr. Lerma has applied for a Class A beer and Class A liquor license to go into what was formerly the Fiesta Cancun location that previously held a Class A beer and Class B beer and Class B reserve liquor. He did complete an application and submitted that to the clerk's office. The matter was referred to the ABLCC for its October 9th, 2018 meeting. Given the concerns raised by the City Council during the applicant's request for a conditional use for the drive-through window, the applicant has specifically excluded the drive-up window as part of the licensed premises on this application. The ABLCC reviewed the application on October 9th and made a recommendation to deny the application on a vote of 4-1. In addition to hearing from members of the public who voiced opposition to the application, the stated explanation in that vote included concerns regarding the density of alcohol establishments within the proximity of the applicant's property as well as the city overall. So this is before you tonight. The resolution before you is to deny, so I would just remind you of, if you were to approve this, you would need to amend that motion for the floor. And you have the application, the questionnaire, and the floor plan, as well as a density map before you for discussion.
Thank you. Is there a motion on this matter?
Yes.
Okay.
May I?
Are you going to make a motion? Before we have discussion, I have to get a motion I have to get a motion and a second before we start the actual discussion on this matter. So is there going to be I just want to make sure we're getting ready to have a motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
May I go on?
You may go ahead.
Okay, thank you. For the purposes of discussion, I move to approve the liquor license as stated within the resolution, but my motion is for approval. Does that cover enough detail?
So what I'm hearing is you're making a motion to approve the license. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes, that is my motion.
So motion to approve the license.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Is there a second to such motion? It's been a motion and a second to approve the license. Any councilor comments or discussion? Councilor Forback.
Yes. I have to say that it's really only been today that I have realized that what I had thought was referred to as a convenience store is really essentially a full liquor store. I mean, because it's the Class A. I asked this, and that was affirmed.
Wait, hold on. Let me get a little order here.
Okay,
Hold on. Let's everybody pause. Give me 1 second. There's a motion and a second to approve the license. I don't necessarily want to veer down too far down a path that we could get muddied waters here. I understand your point for our clarification. I'm not understanding this to be just a full-blown, just a liquor store. My understanding is it's a convenience store that's going to be selling alcohol. I mean, the applicant is here, and I think at this point, what we can do is hear from him to exactly what his purpose is and what type of store this is. I want to limit it to that.
Okay.
I want to limit it to that, because if we go too far down, we're muddying the waters, and we have a motion and a second on the floor, and since this is part of the discussion, I want to make sure that when we move forward and we move with this, that we are moving forward with clarity and understanding. So that's the reason why I'm allowing the applicant to come forward at this time to answer your question, Councilor Forback. So if the applicant is here, please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Nicholas Lerma, 8014 South Creek Road. As we stated before, we've been here before.
I have been very clear that we would be selling food because the business is set up for the restaurant still. The only thing that's not there is the vents inside. Everything else is still there. Pop, chips, milk. I also brought up with the sales of liquor, a parent could come in saying, oh, I forgot something lunchable, anything like that they can come in after they're on their way home or something and pick up something for school, whatever. So yes, it is not just a liquor store. We are looking to do sandwiches, whether they're hot or cold. That hasn't been discussed yet because we've had other issues going on with this. So it's been a very long process, and with that, we have been very willing to work with whatever you guys have suggested, so yes, there will be liquor sales, but we also want to sell food, and that was our plan from the beginning because the restaurant part is still there.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Jacobson.
My only comment would be that this is my neighborhood, and I agree with some of the comments that were made earlier, that there are a lot of these licenses, but until we can find a way that we can wrap our arms around how we would limit them in a way that was fair for new applicants and existing applicants, I think that it's difficult for me anyways, to find a reason that this specific one wouldn't work, especially considering the location has already had a different type of license. And so I also want to thank the applicant for working with staff when they brought concerns, so that we're all on the same page and we're working together.
Any other councilor comments? Councilor Anderson.
I'd just like to state that I share the same concerns that the Alcohol Commission had about the density in the city. So I just want to put that on the record.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, there is a motion and a second to approve the license on the floor. All those in favor of approving the license say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay, we're going to redo that, and I want a roll call for this one, please, just to make sure we are all clear for the record, please.
Anderson. No. Blakely. Yes. Forbeck. No. Duncan.
No.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Levy.
Yes.
Preschel.
No.
Motion fails 4-3.
Thank you. Item 8, ordinances 8A, please.
Okay, never mind. We're good.
It is consideration of ordinance number 3630 to amend certain sections of the Index of Special Locations, Section 1302 of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit relating to the removal of parking along Town Hall Road. This is second reading.
Director Williamson, please.
Thank you. You have before you the second reading to remove parking along Town Hall Road. And this is related to the road improvements that were handled on Town Hall Road.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Preschel. Is there a second? Second by Anderson. Any questions or comments? All those in favor of approval say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. 8B, please.
8B is consideration of ordinance 3629 to amend certain sections of the Index of Special Locations, Section 1302 of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit relating to the establishment of stop signs and turning movements at the Brannigan Road frontage road.
Director Williamson, please.
Good evening. This is the second reading for the improvements that occurred at an offset intersection, which is now a four-leg intersection. And this would be the second reading to allow stop sign and the turning movements.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Jacobson. Is there a second by Duncan? Any questions or comments? All those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. Item 9 is appointments.
All of these appointments will be set by one motion unless you want to have one taken off. There are 3 appointments this evening. To the Landmark Commission, we have incumbent Alex Blazer to a term ending October 31st, 2021. To the Park Recreation and Conservation Advisory Commission, we have Benjamin Reber, who is replacing Carol Mankiewicz to a term ending September 30th of 2021, and Julio Castaneda, 1540 Grant Street, to a term ending September 30th of 2021.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Preschel, second by Blakely. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. Item 10, council activities and upcoming events. Councilor Jacobson, please.
I just want to reiterate our excitement for the USS Beloit declaration. It's a big honor for the city of Beloit, and just a reminder that Fairbanks history really ties back to a lot of Beloit's history, and a lot of people moved to Beloit and even to Wisconsin from specifically Mississippi to come and work here. And a lot of families that are still here came here specifically to work at Fairbanks, and there's lots of wonderful stories about that. And so this is kind of a great throwback to our history as a city. I know we drive by Fairbanks all the time, and at least I often forget, I just see the big walls and I forget how important it has been to the history of Beloit. And so this has been a nice, friendly reminder and pretty exciting for us. So just wanted to, an extra comment.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson.
No report.
Councilor Blakely.
Recently, I had a chance to participate in Coffee with a Cop. I love coffee, and I love the police department, shall we say. It was a good event at one of our new businesses in downtown Beloit, Blue Collar Coffee. So check it out when you have a chance. I believe in supporting Beloit businesses. Mark Preschel and I attended a candidates forum here, held in our city forum, for candidates for state assembly. It was really well attended, which was very gratifying, because it's nice to see people coming out to get themselves better informed before the upcoming election on November 6th. I would ask Lori Stotler, our city clerk treasurer, to just give some information about how people can cast absentee ballots before the in-person election.
Okay, we're 3 weeks away, and we have opened in our office the in-person absentee voting. So if you are unable to go to the polls on November 6th, you can come and vote absentee in the clerk's office on the second floor this week, but we're moving it to the first floor operations for the 2 weeks leading up to the election. You can also request an absentee by mail. We'll take care of you all the way up to Thursday, November 1st. And we have all 9 polling places open this year, too. So you should not expect long lines if that's one of the reasons why you might be voting absentee. We are gearing up to be able to handle everyone.
That's great. Thank you very much, Lori. I have one other thing I wanted to mention, which is an upcoming event held by the NAACP, the Beloit NAACP. We're having a major speaker this year. He's James Meredith, and you might know him from the history of the civil rights movement in America. Speaking of Mississippi, he was the first African-American student to attend the University of Mississippi back in 1962. Talk about challenging. Well, this brave man is going to be the speaker here in Beloit at the Freedom Fund Banquet, held a week from Thursday on October 25th at the Eclipse Center. I have a couple phone numbers people can call if they want to get a ticket for this special event. You can call either 365-1881 or 365-2412. It's a chance to hear from someone very important in American history. Thank you.
Councilor Forback.
I just wanted to say how wonderful, of course, is with the ship bearing Beloit's name. I love it. And we also have a glacier named for Beloit, but that was named by people from Beloit College. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. So that's sort of cool, too. So there's Beloit everywhere you go. Then also, I've been enjoying some of the new places to eat. I love it, although we're also faithful to our favorites that already existed. And I want to say thank you to Lori, because my husband and I have already voted, and it was very easy. So that's it.
Council Pressure.
We got her, okay. By the way, the Beloit Glacier was the only photo of Beloit I could find online in the year 2000. So that's why I started putting photos of Beloit online, just in case you were wondering why that. I giggled hard when you said that. Anyway, lots of things have been going on, mostly personal, but I did manage to work on the wine walk, and my wife attended it. And this is a very successful event. It sold out like 3 weeks before the actual event. It's the third time. It's the first time it's not rained. And if you can get my wife to come downtown to an event without my assistance, you're doing something right. So I give my hats off to the people who came up with this idea and are executing it so well. It is a fundraiser for Downtown Beloit Association, so it helps everybody and helps all the programs that they support and everything that we do that makes our downtown so attractive to so many people. I also attended my good friend Rod's presentation on Beloit history Sunday at the Beloit Historical Society. It was well attended. Over 85 people were there. And even during a Bears game, imagine that. So anyway, it was well attended. Coming up, however, we have on 10/27 is the last farmers market of the year, including the trick-or-treat parade costume thing down there for the kids. Trying to get our coworker to dress up as Shelby, but I don't know if we're going to pull that off or not. We'd like her to be in costume handing out candy. Anyway, and then also on 10/29 is What the Tech at the Grinnell Hall. I do that every month at 1 o'clock at Grinnell Hall. And let's see, the fourth Thursday is the one coming up next week, the 7/22. That's Courageous Conversations at the Merrill Community Center. And this one I think is on LGBT issues. And so if you can come down at 5:30 to the Merrill Community Center and then join us in these courageous conversations. It's not easy conversations. It's hard stuff, and everybody's encouraged to be honest and talk about it fairly. So anyway, that's what's coming up for me. Thank you.
Vice President Duncan.
First, I want to echo what everyone else said about the naming of the ship. I want to give special thanks to Senator Baldwin and also our city manager, Lori Luther, and all of our staff, Andrew Yankee, and everyone that made it possible. And then also, I would like to recognize the students that are in the audience today. It's always nice to have students attend our meetings. Maybe one day you'll be sitting in one of these seats soon. And then also, what did they say? Okay. And then I just want to mention, with all the hurricanes that are going on, let's keep the families that are in Florida and in Mexico in our prayers. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have no comments this evening. City Manager's presentation, we have none this evening. Item 12, please.
We have consideration of a resolution 2018-185 adopting the City of Beloit strategic plan for 2018 to 2020.
City Manager Luther.
Thank you. We provided a public presentation of the draft strategic plan at the last council meeting for the public to see and have an opportunity to provide any comments on. It is back before you this evening for adoption. This, again, is a continuation of our previous strategic plan that helps us head in the same direction with greater emphasis on specific initiatives and outcome measurements that will help us monitor our progress. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have, and staff was happy to work with the full council in coming up with the revisions to the existing plan.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Jacobson. Second by Blakely. Any questions or comments? All those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. 12B, please.
The City Council may convene into closed session in the City Manager's Conference Room on the 4th floor of City Hall pursuant to WIS-DAS 1985 sub 1 sub C to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of a public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, namely to discuss mid-year performance of City Manager Luther. The council will not reconvene into open session.
Before we make that motion, I want to make sure that once we make this motion, we will we would go to the 4th floor. I would ask for a 5-minute recess before we convene, so make sure we're back into the 4th floor conference room within
Mr.
5 minutes. Is there a
President.
motion to go into close? Motion by Duncan.
Before the vote, I just wanted to mention that I have these miniature pumpkins. If anybody here wants them, I'll move them over there to that wall. Just help yourselves before you go. Please.
She doesn't want to take them all.
Is there a second? Is there a second for the motion? There's a second by Forbeck. All those in favor of going to close, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. 5 minutes and we're in the close. Let me see you in the back.
Back to school with your pumpkin from the